What if I told you that the Ballet The Firebird was an unlikely catalyst for revolution in ballet and in music? This ballet marked a turning point for New York City Ballet, the company, and for artistic giants such as Balanchine and Stravinsky, Maria Tallchief and Gelsey Kirkland, and many more. Without Firebird, we may not have had a Stravinsky. We may not even have had a Balanchine, at least not as we know him. Let's take a look. The idea for Firebird originated in 1909 when Sergei Diaghilev, the director of the touring ballet company, the Ballet Russe, wanted to create a new ballet. Turning away from the aesthetics of Western-facing St. Petersburg, Firebird was an amalgamation of Russian fairy tales steeped in folklore and mysticism. For example, the ballet's antagonist, Kachi, is rooted in the legendary Kachi the Deathless, a recurring figure in Russian folklore. Known as an immortal sorcerer and ogre-like figure, Kachi is infamous for catching princesses and turning their would-be saviors into stone, whose immortality stems from his hidden soul, which is typically encased in a needle, which is inside of an egg, inside of a duck, which is in a hare, locked in an iron chest, buried beneath an oak tree on an island far, far away. In the ballet, Kachi retains many of these traits. He is an immortal, malevolent sorcerer who imprisons princesses and turns night into stone, whose soul is hidden inside of a magical egg that must be destroyed in order to defeat him. Russian audiences at the time would have immediately recognized this character, along with Prince Ivan, who's also drawn from centuries of Russian folklore. First performed in 1910, it catapulted its composer, a heretofore unknown Stravinsky, to international fame. But first, let's look at how this ballet was almost something quite different. Several other composers were either offered or considered for the musical composition, and they either withdrew or for one reason or another were passed over, when Diaghilev thought to ask the young Stravinsky, thinking that he would say yes to anything, and he was right. Once the score was written, the roles needed to be cast, and the title role was originally offered to prima ballerina Anna Pavlova. But she turned it down because she couldn't stand Stravinsky's music, and it went to Tamara Karsavina instead. It sounds funny to us today knowing what a crucial ballet this turned out to be, but you have to remember, Stravinsky was an unknown and his music was a universe away from other ballet composers such as Minkus or Tchaikovsky. And Anna Pavlova was a star, quite comfortable in her classical repertoire. Why would she go to the bother? What's important here is not only the score, but the fact that the score was a hit. We all know that once an artist has been validated, they're then able to fully be themselves and to take risks that they weren't necessarily able to take when they were still trying to win over an audience. It was the public's love of Stravinsky that afforded him another commission whose influence cannot be overstated: The Rite of Spring. Although unlike Firebird, Rite was not an immediate hit, but to those who knew how to listen, it solidified Stravinsky as an artist beyond the leading edge of his field. Now, it was the same producer, impresario, madman, genius, Sergei Diaghilev, who commissioned both Firebird and Rite of Spring, who introduced Igor Stravinsky and George Balanchine, whose eventual partnership would change ballet forever. Fun fact, Diaghilev is also the one who named Balanchine. Balanchine's original family name was the Georgian Balanchivads, but Diaghilev made him change it to Balanchine, and he kept it. Balanchine and Stravinsky's first collaboration was in 1928 on Apollon Musagate, later renamed Apollo. The ballets that they went on to create including Firebird, Agon, Duo Concertant, Stravinsky Violin Concerto, Rubies from the ballet Jewels, just to name a few, embodied the modernism that was the artistic zeitgeist of the times. These ballets were sleek, cool, beautiful, occasionally disconcerting, and within them, we have the neoclassical era, which eventually led to the contemporary ballets of choreographers like William Forsythe and later Crystal Pite, among others, spawning literally generations of new works and new ways of thinking about the art form. But why was this such a potent mix? You see, Balanchine trained at the Imperial Theater, but he also graduated from the Petrograd Conservatory of Music, where he was fully trained as a musician and a composer, which meant that he and Stravinsky met each other not as two artists from separate fields, but as peers, two composers working on varied instruments in sound and in body. But let's back up just a little bit. Firebird wasn't just important because it led to their introduction. It was also a young New York City Ballet's first big success, due in no small part to its starring ballerina, Maria Tallchief. The company was founded in 1948, with Balanchine's new production premiering only a year later in 1949. Tallchief's legacy is enormous. Between Firebird and a few years later, the wild success of Balanchine's Nutcracker, also starring Tallchief as the Sugar Plum Fairy, New York City Ballet's position as the leading choreographic and artistic voice in dance was confirmed. And it would go on to have an outsized influence throughout the country, as Balanchine's dancers and protégés, including Tallchief, became directors and founders of schools and companies, spreading the philosophies and aesthetics of New York City Ballet like so many seeds. This ballet has been inhabited by some of the world's greatest ballerinas, with a few of them leaving their mark on the character long after the curtain has closed, including New York City Ballet principal dancer Ashley Bowder, who, after 25 years on stage, had her final performance with the company on February 13, 2025, in this role. Bowder's musicality, effervescence, and explosive technique were on display in Firebird as if it were created for her alone. Thanks for watching. I'm Cynthia Dragoni, The Dance Lens for All Arts TV.